We're now going to move on to Dr. Naveen Keerthy, who is the NHS Clinical Entrepreneur Fellow and founder of Doc2UK. I've had the pleasure of briefly hearing Dr. Keerthy talk previously, so really good insights. I'll let you introduce yourself, Naveen. You've got a fantastic biog, and I'm sure people will be interested, not least what's led you to develop this programme and the opportunities that are available through it. So are you okay if I hand straight over to you?
Yes, sure, Elsie, and thank you very much for the intro. And thanks to actually Lauren and Joy for giving me this opportunity. I'll share some slides which have got a detail about what exactly, my journey and then how we started Doc2UK. And I'll go and a bit more in detail about international recruitment per se. I'll start sharing my slides. If anyone has any problems viewing them, please do let me know. Can everyone see the slides? If you cannot, please message say because I'm on my main screen and I probably cannot see that. I'll just expand. Right. So here I am. I'm Naveen, by the way. A brief introduction about me. This kind of. When I had the conversation with Joy at HPMA, I said that I'm going to talk about Doc2UK and how we help hospitals in terms of cutting their costs. And so she said that, Naveen, discuss your story. And I think that this kind of picture tells about it. This is me not really looking ambitious or having those dreams of going abroad or so on. It's basically, I come from a small town or a village in India. I grew up there, and then 15 years ago, I made the move to the UK. And back in the growing times, 80s and 90s, looking into the sky and trying to find that slide of an aeroplane is what essentially I would be looking at. I never imagined that 30 years down the line, I would be here in the UK and then speaking on a platform like this, or becoming an entrepreneur by myself, let alone be a doctor. So the doctors who we engage and support with, I see that a lot of them have a similar journey as well. So this talk for me is not just about me, but then it is about the doctors who move from overseas and come to UK to work like us. As I was mentioning, I grew up in India. I went to med school in India. And for the last 15 years, I've been working in NHS as a doctor. And this is me actually when I first came to UK, and you probably could relate to it. That's the hospital accommodation. This is my first clinical attachment, and followed by after 3 months doing clinical attachment in NHS, I did my first role as an house officer and then as an SHO in Guyton St Thomas Hospital. There were many doctors who came like me. And here is that actually in 2004, there were 3,000 doctors. Although I speak a bit more about Indian doctors because that is where actually we have heightened presence as Doc2UK as a recruitment agency. But we do provide service and then support doctors coming anywhere from the world. This is the journey of just the traditional Indian doctors who came to the UK and started working in NHS. So back in 2004, 2005, there were close to 3,000 doctors who moved into the country to start working, and suddenly they stopped coming. And I could relate because I was there during this period of time. This is when actually it started to become a bit difficult. I remember my experiences first coming in with the high ambitions and aspirations and come to see, I didn't have much money with me. I had around 800 pounds in my pocket as a cash, which my dad took a loan. And I went to a bank to deposit. And then the bank said that they can't open a bank account for me because I didn't have any address proofs. I was sharing an accommodation with a friend's friend who came in 6 months prior to me. And it took me almost 4 weeks to open a bank account. I couldn't obviously register with the GP surgery and then even get a phone contract. So I started doing my attachments and I got my first job, and that is when things started to move along. This is just the very initial hurdles. And once got into the first job, progressing in the, when anyone who moves, to the UK or anyone who moves overseas, the reasons are multitude. For me, it was like I wanted to train. I worked with a surgeon in the medical school where I went to, where he returned from UK to India, and then I thought it was exceptional. He's like one of those surgeons who could operate with both the hands with such dexterity. And when I speak to him, his communication, his language, his knowledge was compelling. And for me, I thought like, right, I have to go to UK and then train like him. And that is my aspiration. But I know now, having engaged with so many doctors over the last few years now, their reasons are different. They're not necessarily wrong, right? Everybody have their own reasons. For some, it is finances. For some, it is experience. For some, it is to settle down. For most, I see it could be just the training. The reason there is a big drop here is because a lot of the doctors have seen that they are not being supported, or they didn't feel supported. The expectations were never met to what they envisaged. So it always went back and fed back into the local community. So it was in the media, it was in the chat groups, and then they stopped coming. This is the period where I was on the interview panels for the hospitals, and then we advertised for SHO in orthopedics. So I did my MRCS, I did my diploma in sports medicine, I worked as an orthopedic surgeon, and I worked with Silverstone as the racetrack doctor as well for Formula and MotoGP races. And while I was on the interview panel, we hardly had 2 or 3 applications, and most of them are who are working in McDonald's or otherwise working as minicab drivers, who were doctors almost 7-8 years ago, and then haven't been practicing. There were no applications, and recognized the big shortage in the NHS particularly. Our trust was spending almost 46 to 50 million pounds each year on locum costs because we didn't have the full-time staffing to support the recruitment needs. And this is how actually Doc2UK originated, having identified 2 sets of problems. One is the NHS, the issues related to the staff shortage, the cost subsequent to that, and then 2, the lack of support to the overseas doctors. And I was I was part of it. And then loads of my friends who have come and then gone back and then who stayed here, but then couldn't find the support to progress in their careers. 3 years ago, I joined, hope actually everyone is still with me. 3 years ago, I joined this NHS program called Clinical Entrepreneurs. This is started originally for doctors, this program, and then subsequently incorporated nurses and any NHS professional, line managers, pharmacists, so on. The idea was like any NHS staff who has got a new idea, and if it is good to the NHS, they'll give the support. My idea was like, right, build a platform, make sure that you support and address the NHS staffing issue, and at the same time, support the doctors from our personal experiences about the journey. Get the expectations right, help them in the journey from our first-hand experience of going through it. And that is how Doc2UK evolved. So we did a lot of background work. We are, I think, the only agency ever to be let into a GMC office and spend a whole day understanding about every single step of GMC registration for an overseas doctor. There are multiple pathways to register with the GMC. As you all possibly know, to work in the UK, you need to have a GMC registration, and that aspect we covered. When we conducted interviews for Chelsea Westminster Hospital in India, we had a GMC team member come over there and talk to the group of doctors who were attending the event about how to cut short their general application process. That is how we started. Another aspect is like we are currently the NHS Confederation, NHS Employers Associate Partners. So understand the guidance, particularly for overseas recruitments. So we qualify, and the code of conduct, actually we are members of it. We tied up with the Faculty of Medical Leaders, which is an association where doctors who want to progress and have got leadership abilities, they support them. So we identified like the 15 doctors who recruited recently for Chelsea Trust, 1 or 2 who have got the abilities, signpost them into the right direction. As I said about the bank accounts, so Barclays provides our doctors a premier account on the day they arrive into the country. The contracts, it's in a mobile phone company where our doctors get a contract to speak actually to overseas in India, 2,000 minutes, and all for free. And then this is supported to us. Aspects, the troubles, what we went through, we try to mitigate them. In India, we connected with the British High Commission. We introduced the trust actually who came with us to the British High Commission. Our next round of interviews were to be conducted in the High Commission venue itself, but pandemic, and then that got cancelled. We engaged actively with OET, one of the language providers, to assess the validity and verification for the doctors. And big hospitals, which have doctors who intend to come and move. I would like to highlight actually one thing. For us, ethical recruitment is very crucial. I come from India. India has shortage of doctors as well. We have 2.8 doctors for every 1,000 people here in the UK. India has 0.9 doctors for every 1,000 people in India. I strongly feel like, okay, we should not take doctors away from India as such. But if someone had told me 15 years ago, Naveen, don't go to UK, stay in India, I would still haven't made the choice because I wanted to go, I wanted to move, I wanted to explore. And when we did a study, we did an extensive review about it. There were at least 18 to 24,000 doctors who are exactly like me, who wanted to go. What we do is we do not promote ourselves about the UK, the NHS, the journey. We just specifically identify these 22,000 doctors and then tell them about the support we provide. Tell them the reality, give them the reality check. Life is like, looks green on the other side, but it really is not. And we set their expectations right. Then we support them in the recruitment journey. This is actually, I'll go back into the example of what we did for Chelwest Trust. And then subsequently, I'll come to the core discussion points about the essentials and the common issues. So Chelwest have recruited 16 doctors to us, just all in a span of 3 months period. And this is an average cost for a locum, 10 doctors cost. And this is an average cost for 10 full-time doctors. And you can realize the savings over here per trust. I'm not going to more in detail about the cost savings and so on, but you can imagine the time consumed in terms of coordinating and getting a locum even in the last minute or for a longer duration. And that is all avoided as long as this doctor is good and then they know what they're doing. And this is when our support comes. Essentials in international recruitment, my strong, having worked closely and having run a successful campaign for Chelwest, and then who are very happy with the quality of the candidates and the support we provided and the success in their campaign. These are the things which we picked up working very closely with them. Number one, ideal is doing a bulk recruitment than doing individual department, 1 or 2 doctors. Spare the time actually, identify, average, every trust has almost around 30 to 40 doctor shortages. And if they identify one dedicated person who could be the pastoral lead, the title given was talent acquisition lead, they can review the need of the trust. They can identify individual departments costing in terms of the locums, and then coordinate a bulk recruitment campaign. That makes life easier for them, for the candidate, and for us actually to support. Not necessarily us, it could be direct recruitment by the NHS as well. But when they do a bulk recruitment, that makes coordinated through one dedicated person super easy for everyone. By the way, I'm coming very close. It's only 1 slide more after this. Vetting and validation. So there are big differences in terms of GMC reference and GMC registration. So this is something actually very crucial, that one person to be aware of identifying the right candidate. Effective communication with the clinician who is coordinating or conducting the interviews is very crucial. Have they done the ATLS? Is an ATLS conducted in India is approved or accepted? Is an international MRCS accepted or MRCGP accepted? These are the aspects that they need to be very clear about beforehand. One of the common issues faced is like during the interviews, picking the right candidate and generating the offer letter and certificate of sponsorship in quick time. The delays often lead to duplication, the same doctor applying to different hospitals and then losing out them. And most important aspect is like buddying up these doctors together. And that makes life so much easier for everyone involved, including actually sending out the occupational health appointments for all doctors together at once, conducting an integration or induction events for them together, signposting towards them, towards the accommodations and so on. So these are I'll share the slides as well. Finding the right candidate, as I said, that we do help in this journey in terms of identifying the right candidates, but then most hospitals, if they have that one pastoral dedicated person, particularly identifying the needs of the candidate, is that training, is that settlement, is that experience, what they're coming for, will help to identify and suit the right candidate. Avoiding delays, as I mentioned about, preventing duplication is one of the crucial things. NHS integrations, buddying up is crucial. And then we conduct regular events, Zoom events for our doctors, and then the pastoral support. And finally, as Caroline mentioned about as well, the retention and recruitment of further recruitments, having one lead guiding through the career progression is very critical. My last slide. So this is the Barclays team actually who engaged with our doctors. One of our doctors actually is here as well for any further questions. This is with the OET team, and this is where we had like a small Christmas for our doctors when they first came into the UK. Any questions, please do message me. I think I've just taken a bit more time than I expected, particularly in my initial slides. I'm sorry about that.
Don't you worry, fantastic stuff. And it's interesting looking at the chat box, your presentation has certainly invoked some discussion around the practical problems that we see people facing in trying to do, I mean, particularly the bank accounts are coming up. You know, just that practical implication is absolutely massive for people. Something that I've picked up on, you're very keen to distinguish yourself from a recruitment agency. You're not a recruitment agency. What I'm hearing is that you are helping people with the practical application of transferring once they've decided that they want to be recruited into overseas, and also offering them information so they can make informed decisions about that. Is that what you would say really stands you apart from perhaps other people who are offering or proposing to offer such services?
Definitely, honestly. So for us, the very idea why we started is like keeping the candidate. NHS is, we all know it's 1.2 million staff, it's a beast. So it can sustain even if they get one doctor wrong. Doc2UK as an agency, if it doesn't work well, I go back to work as a doctor. And my team, predominantly doctors, we go back. But then this doctor, when they get it wrong, making that big move, spending the time, energy, money into this, then it's difficult. So we always put them at the heart, at the core. So once you provide the support to them, they will stay in the organization where they come, particularly if the need is met. And that is what we showed as a successful example with Shellwest. So all of our doctors are very happy. The trust is very happy. 5 of the doctors from the 16 have moved into training, but they're very happy with that as well. And for us, this is where stands us out, because we started this at the heart, keeping the doctors.
Brilliant, thank you. And somebody's mentioned that they have a buddying system for internationally recruited colleagues and introduce people to the BAME network. How would you see that interacting with the work that you do?
Although we do completely BAME network, I'm a BAME myself. That is not something we started off saying, because we wanted them to feel like they have come to UK, integrate UK into it. Don't necessarily have to identify only Indians. But for some, actually, you know, it makes it easier. Say if there's an Indian WhatsApp group, they talk about the restaurant, so we connect to them. In the same way, if a doctor wants, actually, I want to be part of a BAME network, indeed, actually, we will connect to them. I will take the details and then signpost them, but not necessarily that is the first line for us.
Okay, thank you. And a couple more questions. So someone's asked about the costs of the service, and you might want to put that in chat or say how people contact you directly. And the other thing is, do you support medics coming into mental health services as
yes,
well as you do?
Although the number of psychiatrists is relatively less compared to every other specialty, we cover all other specialties a lot more. We have 3,500 doctors registered, but I suspect only around 24 of them are psychiatrists. The cost, I can say, is less than 10% of their annual salary. So you probably will identify, we are much lesser because our procurement costs are relatively not so high. And so we don't mean to cost our charge like other agencies. So significantly less compared to, and we are on the HDE framework, and we have just now submitted our bid. We are partners with an agency which is on the CCS framework as well.
Brilliant. And can I ask you, and I guess it's following on from Caroline's discussion points earlier around sort of the future landscape. Where do you think we're going with sort of the international recruitment of medics? Do you think it will grow, or do you think we'll start to see that pipeline diminish?
It's like a cycle always. So in late 70s, a lot of Indian doctors have come, and then they are the current GPs wherever you go outside London. And again in late 90s, and then now the cycle has come. So over the next 2 years, there will be saturation to super saturation. A lot of them will come, take up the roles, and then it will stop, as I showed you in the cycle, because invariably once we meet the thresholds. But for nurses, it would be other way around. And I think it will go for next 5 to 7 years without any, I mean, there will be a need for it, but doctors, I think another 1 to 2 years, most likely. There will be a shortage. There is a big shortage, and we can just reflect from the NHSI cost analysis on the locums.
Yeah, no, brilliant, thank you. And I think many will have seen the news today and yesterday around the GP need to bring locums in to reintroduce face-to-face and the response that's had. But we won't go into that on this time, otherwise we could spend the rest of the morning talking about that. Naveen, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to hear you speak and share your journey, and also how you are using your lived experience to try and support others. Thank you. Just to mention as well, your coffee pot always gets a mention, that your priority on arriving in the UK is to get decent coffee. So thank you so much. Really appreciate your time today, and again for sponsoring this event. Thank you.
Thanks, Alice.